Okay, everybody, welcome back to the Pat Flynn Show. We are going to discuss and dissect the kettlebell snatch to help you learn the nuances of this incredible kettlebell exercise, sometimes called the czar of kettlebell lifts. And part of the reason I want to do a specific episode on the kettlebell snatch is not just to help you learn the exercise, but maybe to appreciate some of the subtleties and nuances that very often get overlooked that can hinder your kettlebell snatch efficiency, your technique, that could lead to just a bunch of unnecessary annoyances, whether it's torn calluses or kind of bruised forearms. But also, I want to mention we have a big snatch challenge coming up for members of Strong On. It's the 7,000 rep kettlebell snatch challenge. That's right. That's a crazy high number of reps. We're going to begin in March. We're going to be working towards 7,000 total reps, and we're going to do it in a staggered way. So we're not going to, it's like 300 swings in that we have a high volume training program, but it's unlike 300 swings and the routines are going to be scattered. We're not going to be doing a crazy number of snatches each day, and how we do our snatches will vary throughout the week as well. But the point of that challenge is, of course, to just improve our conditioning, use the kettlebell snatch to build power, strength, to increase that ever enviable attribute known as kettle booty, and to really help you master this exercise and get just own it, just master it, especially if you're somebody who wants to eventually do a kettlebell cert and pass the snatch test or something like that. So anyway, real quick before we get into this episode, that challenge is available to all Strong On members. So if you're not yet a Strong On member, now would be the time to join, because we're doing a big discount, 65% off the initial fee. Just use snatch at checkout. Just one word, lowercase snatch at checkout. At chroniclesofstrength.com/strong on. I will put that link in the show notes for anybody who wants to take part in the snatch challenge. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be fantastic. But right now, I want to focus on the kettlebell snatch technique. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm sharing my screen, and I'm actually going to play a video of mine. So if you're not on YouTube and you're just listening, I will do my best to describe things in as much detail as I can. So hopefully you don't need the video, but I would encourage hopping over to YouTube for this one just so you could see the video, because I think you'll find it helpful. And the video I will be talking along to is actually a tutorial video of mine offering 2 drills to help you progress to the kettlebell snatch. And I want you to watch that video independently because it's a good lead up to the kettlebell snatch. But what I want to do is look just at the snatch itself and just point out some of the nuances of the movement, some of the subtleties that very often get overlooked. And that if you can get these down, you're going to the snatch is going to feel better. It's going to look better. You're going to be able to get more reps in without annoyances. And the 2 major annoyances with the kettlebell snatch, of course, are battered forearms and torn calluses. So I really want to focus on those 2 aspects in this episode. So this will be like a mini masterclass. I think this will be cool. And I'm going to do some more of these. If you like this, I'm going to do, let me know, like and comment and share it and subscribe. And I will do more of these kind of in-depth looks at the exercises. Okay, so if you're looking on YouTube now, you will see me with my, what is that shirt? Oh, what is that shirt with Kurt Russell from the 80s? Anyway, I'm wearing that shirt. I look like Ash Ketchum. We got the pipes out. By the way, the snatch will help you to build and develop your biceps. You're not going to be like Big Papa Pump from the NWO, but it'll lay down some muscle for sure in the arms, because there is an element of the bicep in the kettlebell snatch. And that's real quickly, like why snatch? Why snatch instead of swing? What are the benefits? Well, the kettlebell swing and the kettlebell one-arm swing, they teach you force production and force reduction. Great, important athletic qualities. But the kettlebell snatch teaches you force redirection. That's kind of like one of the unique benefits of the snatch, right? So the kettlebell wants to go out, and now you need to redirect it up. You need to tame this wild and crazy chunk of cast iron, and you got to get it to go up, even though you started projecting it out, because it's a hinge. It is a hinge. The snatch needs to stay as a hinge. We'll get into that as we move along. So this means the snatch is going to hit more of your posture muscles. We're going to get more lat engagement. We're going to get more bicep engagement. We're going to get time under tension with the overhead position. So you're going to have additional benefits, of course, to just challenges to your shoulders and triceps in general, to your core even. And these are just a few of the reasons why the snatch is an awesome exercise. It is really a full body strength, power, and conditioning move. We're not just working all the lower body muscles, but we're hitting a ton of the upper body, especially upper body pulling muscles as well. Now, we want to be careful about this because the snatch is still predominantly powered by the hips. You know, the arms, if you will, are just sort of redirecting it. They're more of the steering wheel than the engine. The hips are the engine in the snatch. The arms are the steering wheel. They're still involved. They're still active. They're still being worked, but most of the juice is coming from that explosive hinge pattern as well. And there's a few things that you want to watch out for in the kettlebell snatch that could indicate that you're not using enough hip snap. One of them, and we'll talk about this quickly, then we'll watch the video. One of them is if you're finishing with a press, meaning the kettlebell isn't quite getting where it needs to be, and you kind of see this mini press to finish the exercise. That means you haven't put enough oomph into it. You haven't really properly powered the movement with enough hip drive, and you're compensating by finishing with a press. That is a sign that you need to work on your hip snap and your hip drive. So that's one thing to look out for. Another thing to look out for is if the kettlebell is kind of sagging. Right. If like your arm's going up, but the kettlebell is kind of falling behind and you're performing something of like a lateral or delt raise or something like that. Again, not enough power on the hip snap to really zip the bell up to where it needs to be. So those are two things that can be indicators that maybe you're not getting enough hip drive into your kettlebell snatch. Now, real quick, before we get into the video, many issues with snatch are actually issues with the swing that were never properly addressed. So it is so important that you really understand and have the kettlebell swing and one arm swing mastered before you start doing snatches. If you don't have a proper hinge position, that's going to be an issue when we get to kettlebell snatching. If you don't have a really good hip snap, if you can't come out of that hinge position and just slam into that standing plank and just explode, just vicious, right? You're just slamming your hips forward. That's what it is. If you don't have that explosive movement down really well, you're not going, and you don't have it down well with the swing, you're not going to have a very good looking or powerful snatch. Okay, so let's look at this video. I'm just going to play a few seconds. The cool feature about YouTube is you can change the speed of videos. So I have it at half speed right now, so I don't move this slow normally. I'm a pretty slow mover, but I'm not this slow. And if there's any musicians out there, I actually use this feature a lot to slow down music, to either hear or see what somebody's doing to learn tunes on my guitar. So it's a really cool feature. And it's also useful for analyzing exercise technique. So if there's kind of an exercise technique that, is a fast one, an explosive one, you can use this playback speed on YouTube to slow it down. And you'll get a kind of hopefully more nuanced and clear picture of what's going on in a very fast movement. So that's just a resource for you that you might find useful. I find it useful for music, for exercise, or just breaking anything down, just putting it in slow motion. Okay, so let's hit play. Here I am. I'm wagging my jaw. What else is new? Flexing a little bit, looking good. All right, there we go. We're snatching. All right, so here's the first thing to notice. I paused the video at the bottom. If you're listening, I'm kind of saying like maybe go over to YouTube at this point because I'm going to be pointing some specifics out. But again, I'll try and just describe it as best as I can. So here's the bottom of the snatch. You'll notice a couple of features here. Let me just start at the bottom. My feet are planted, my heels are planted, and my toes are planted. Let's move up. Let's look at the ankles. There's not a ton, if any, ankle flexion. And that's reflected by the sort of verticality of my shins, right? So my knees are pretty much stacked over my ankles. They're not really going forward at all. Okay, so we can see that, right? My shins are vertical, my feet are planted, my knees are stacked over my ankles. Now they're bending, right? They're bending in as much as I need to get my hips back into this deep hinge position. Now look at this. Notice how far my forearm is back into my thighs. That is very important. Sometimes people have too shallow of a hinge. We really, 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 for either swings or snatches, want to learn to just get that maximal hip hinge. We got to stretch that butt way back. And that will mean getting your forearm, not just your hand, but your forearm deep into that inner thigh. And, you kind of think of this target of a triangle, right? So if you kind of draw a triangle between your knees up to your crotchal region there, be careful of that crotchal region. We'll talk about that in a minute. You're putting your forearm right through that triangle. That's your target, right? You don't want to go too low. So if you go below that triangle, you risk rounding your back and putting too much stress on your back. So you want to go right in the middle of that triangle. That's your target for both one-arm swings and snatches. But since we're on snatches, we'll focus on snatches. Then you'll also see that, yes, my hips are back. Notice my back is flat, pretty much a straight line from my tailbone up to my head. So this is, I give Pat Flynn here, I give him a solid A performance on his hinge position for his snatch. You'll notice that the shoulders are slightly rotated, but only slightly. So this will be inevitable with the one-arm movements. There will always be some slight rotation, right, because of the asymmetric loading. But we want to, as far as possible, keep our shoulders as square as possible. We don't want to over-rotate. Sometimes you see people really twist with the snatch. We want to fight that. We want to stay pretty square, and just, a slight subtle rotation is kind of inevitable, especially as you start using heavier weight. But we want to fight that. And that's going to be a good core challenge. It's going to be a good kind of oblique challenge as well. So again, one of the kind of hidden core benefits of the snatch. So fight the rotation, keep the shoulders square. So let's go through the checklist. Feet are planted. Shins are vertical. Knees are stacked over the ankles. Hips are back. Knees are bent, but only in as much as it allows me to get my hips back. My forearm is deep through that triangle target. My back is flat. I am loaded in this position. This is the analogy we sometimes give is you're stretching the bow here and you're about to fire the arrow. So let's watch where we go from here. Boom, hip snap. Now look at this. I pause the video at just the right time. So my hips are pretty much fully extended at this point. The kettlebell was zipping out. Look at my elbow. It's close to my body and it is pretty bent. It's almost bent at a 90-degree angle. Now, this is one of the subtleties of the snatch that often gets overlooked. And this is what is known as taming the ark. And what happens so much with the kettlebell snatch is people forget to activate the steering wheel. And instead, the kettlebell arcs out wildly. The arm pretty much stays essentially straight. And the kettlebell arcs out wildly, then it comes back and almost like throws you backwards. And this is problematic for many different reasons. One, it's wildly inefficient. The kettlebell is traveling far greater of a distance than it needs to get to its target. It can, like I said, it throws you backwards. It can cause some issues with just your balance. It could cause some issues with your shoulders, and it just increases the possibility of injuring yourself or really just. It's not efficient. It's not efficient, and it's less safe. We want to tame the ark. It's probably also going to lead to banged up forearms again as well. Instead, what we want to do is we want to tame that ark. So you imagine this kind of like wild arc that might come out. You're going to try and draw that arc in. And so once the hips explode and they extend, what you're doing is you're trying to keep, Dan John calls it a quiet elbow. You're trying to not let your elbow make too much noise. You kind of keep it in, you keep it subtle. And it's this engagement of the lats and the biceps that it's a quick kind of pulling the kettlebell back in. And this is the force redirection that I'm talking about, where now the kettlebell, rather than arcing out wildly, is going in more of a straight path. It's never perfectly vertical. There's still, somewhat of an arc there, but it's more vertical. It's staying closer to your body on the way up. That's what we want. We want the kettlebell to stay closer to your body rather than farther away. And if you see on the video right now, my elbow, again, pretty close to my body and pretty bent. And that's because and it's kind of a jolting movement. It's not a slow bicep curl. It's just the kettlebell wants to go out and you're just, you're kind of uppercutting or zipping the kettlebell straight up. So it's not this long, tense movement. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a little jab, a little backwards elbow jab is one of the best ways, I think, to explain it. So let's watch a few reps here and you'll see what I mean. Maybe I can slow it down even more. Let me go to settings. Let me go to playback speed. Okay, 25%. Let's see how this looks, if this isn't too crazy. Let me rewind it here. Okay. All right, there I am. Ash Ketchum, great. All right. So I'm at the top. We'll talk about the top position in a minute. Throwing the kettlebell down. We'll talk about the reverse. Here we go again. Slow. Look at the elbow right there. So you'll see that I start drawing the elbow back. I start the lat engagement. You'll see my shoulder. It's packed. The kettlebell wants to pull your shoulder forward. Don't let it. Your shoulder stays packed. This is where you want to imagine that, you're squeezing a sponge in your armpit. The kettlebell's trying to pull me forward. I'm saying, no, you're not going to do that, friend. We're not going to let you pull me forward. I am the master here. And so once the kettlebell is about hip height, this is another key. Timing is critical in the snatch. The snatch is timing critical. If you're too soon or you're too late, the movement's going to get messed up. And that's why the snatch has a higher learning curve, because it just takes practice. It takes reps, takes many bad reps to kind of find that timing sweet spot. But it's around when the kettlebell is approaching hip height that you want to start this redirection. This is where the shoulder's packed, and then you start this little tug back. I'm going to hit play again, but it's right there. You see that? Very subtle, but very important. And that's what starts to send the kettlebell upwards. So it's more of a vertical path into a nice finished position. You see how smooth that was? Pat Flynn isn't smooth with a lot of things. He's not a smooth guy, but he's smooth with the kettlebell snatch because I've practiced it and I've done my best to master these nuances, and so I can pass them on to you. All right. So once you see that redirection and how the kettlebell is kept close to the body on the way up, everything else smooths out from there. You'll see that the kettlebell transitioned very smoothly onto the forearms. It didn't fly over my hand and whack my forearm. And since the kettlebell was more moving up, it isn't wrenching me backwards. So it really just kind of lands perfectly and very smoothly into this overhead locked out position. Now, a few notes about the locked out position. Bicep should be next to or even slightly behind the ear. Looking at Pat Flynn's pipes again here. Elbow should be, we want a full extension, good lockout, but we don't want that overextension. Some people have hypermobile elbows. This is common, especially in women, and it's really freaky looking. It kind of bows in the opposite direction. We don't need to and don't want to go there. Just good, normal, full extension is fine. And bicep next to or slightly behind the ears. Also, like with the kettlebell military press, notice that there is space between my ear and the shoulder. I'm not shrugging up. We're stacked, we're packed, and we're jacked. There we go. I had to add a third there. Okay. Another thing about the top position, notice my hand is open. All right. This is going to be helpful for calluses. When training the kettlebell snatch, we want a loose grip on the kettlebell. With me, if we grip the kettlebell too hard, it's going to slow the rotation and it's going to grind our hands to hamburger meat. The key with a good kettlebell snatch is to keep just the lightest grip that you need to make sure the kettlebell doesn't fly away from you and no more. So again, there's a balancing act there, as tight as we need to make sure the kettlebell doesn't fly off into space. And as a safety measure, make sure that there's always room that if the kettlebell does fly off into space, it's not going to damage someone or something that is precious to you. But then at the top, as we're kind of punching through the kettlebell, I like to just open the fingers because that ensures that I'm not going to be death gripping the kettlebell and grinding my hand to meat. So I like to kind of spear through at the top where we loosen the grip, open the fingers, spear through. That helps to get a nice smooth transition under the forearms because we want it to be quick. And sometimes, when it comes to the kettlebell snatch, when it comes to explosive movements, we often have to fight against our initial intuitions, right? It can be a little intimidating flinging weight overhead at first, and that causes us to tense. And because it's a little intimidating, we tense up and we grab the kettlebell, but that actually makes it worse because then it delays the kettlebell's rotation, it stalls at the top, and then it topples over, it bangs your forearm, and it grinds your hands up. So we have to fight against those initial intuitions. We have to trust the fluidity of the movement and be swift and smooth and not grab that kettlebell too tight and just spear our hand right through it. Okay, so these are the kind of things we're looking for at the top of the kettlebell snatch. Now, on the way down, I want you to notice this if you're watching. If not, I'll try to just describe it as best I can. I'm starting by throwing the kettlebell down. Notice the subtlety of the wrist movement here. And what I'm thinking on the descent of the kettlebell snatch is I'm throwing the kettlebell towards my stomach. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to play chicken with your zipper. So I said we would talk about the crotchal region. And that sounds very inappropriate, but it's important. We have to talk about this because this is another intimidating aspect of the kettlebell snatch. You're going to imagine that you're throwing the kettlebell towards your stomach. Now, the reason I say imagine that you're throwing it towards your stomach and not your hips or your knees is because this will help you to keep a tame arc. If you imagine throwing it towards your stomach, you're inherently going to keep the kettlebell closer to your body rather than casting it out. We just like on the way up, we don't want the kettlebell to cast out. We want to keep it in tight. And the best cue I've found for that is to imagine that you're throwing it close to your stomach, like an overhand softball throw. As you can see in the video, the elbow's crooking. Look at that. The elbow is crooking. It's staying close to my body. And then here's the key. At the last second, we move the crotchal region out of the way. That's what it means to play chicken with your zipper. This is important. And trust me, I've been teaching kettlebells for a long time. I have never had anybody sack themselves before. People were worried about it, but we all know where the precious cargo is, and we all have a great instincts to protect that precious cargo. So you trust yourself, okay? So you throw the kettlebell down, and you're playing chicken with your zipper. And the reason we say that is if you move your hips out of the way too soon, if you put your hips out of the way long before the kettlebell gets there, then your hips aren't going to reduce the load. Your back and your shoulders are going to reduce the load. And that's when you're going to pull your back or pull your shoulders and probably jack yourself up. You need the hips to be there to reduce the load, right? So let's just watch a couple reps here. Hip snap, kettlebell comes up. Notice the hand opens at the top, very smooth. Okay, we got another angle here thanks to cameraman John. Hips move out of the way. Look at as they're moving out of the way. Right when the kettlebell is coming through about to enter the triangle that we talked about, that's when the hips are moving out of the way. We're playing chicken with the zipper into a deep hinge. And now from this angle, we can see again how deep that hinge is. The hips are really back and loaded. The back is flat. The non-working arm is just kind of coming along for the ride. We're not paying too much attention to that. I like to kind of sway it with the kettlebell. So my non-working arm kind of comes back when the kettlebell goes back, and it comes up a little bit when the kettlebell comes up. So again, here from this angle, hip snap. Look at kettlebell is about hip height. Elbow is shoulder is packed, and elbow is about to crook. Bang, there it is. So hopefully this different angle. Oh, look at the mullet just flowing in the wind. There we go. Look at that. Elbow very close to my side. It's a quiet elbow, not making a lot of noise. And we can see how the kettlebell is staying close to my body on the way up. And then probably once about the kettlebell is around eyebrow height. It's around eyebrow height that I find. It's kind of at that moment of weightlessness. You got to go by feel here. There'll be kind of a moment when the kettlebell feels more or less weightless in space. That's when you start to spear through the kettlebell and just come into the finished lockout. Okay. Now, I hesitate to give exact specifications as to when to initiate the crooking of the elbow and the spearing of the hand, because it's going to be a little bit different for each person. But generally, you want to start the initiation of the elbow crooking and the redirection of force when the kettlebell is no higher than hip height. And you want to start kind of spearing through the kettlebell to go into the lockout once the kettlebell is around about eyebrow height. These are general recommendations for a smooth and efficient kettlebell snatch. So one more time, the descent, notice I'm thinking throw the kettlebell towards my stomach. And here's the other thing. This is kind of hard to see in the video, but it's a little blurry. I want to point it out. When the kettlebell's coming down, I'm actually trying to skip the handle of the kettlebell from the base of my palm into the crook of my fingers. There's a second there, a split second, where I'm not actually touching the kettlebell. So look at the top of the kettlebell snatch. If you can't see it, I'll describe it to you. The kettlebell is very deep in the base of my palm, like way down there. And this is going to be a very strong, stable position. We want the kettlebell down, angled deep into the base of the palm, right? Kind of most of the weight should kind of sit where you would heel or palm strike somebody if you're a martial artist, if you know where that is. And that's because it's a very strong position. Now, when I throw the kettlebell down, I'm trying to jump it from the base of my palm into the crook of my fingers and skip over that callousy pad. I don't want it to touch that callousy pad at all, if possible, because it could snag some of those suckers and rip them clean off, as I'm sure we've all experienced. So there's this sort of juggling. It's not really juggling. It's not that cool. It's not that technical, but I'm throwing the kettlebell and it really is not touching my hand for a split second, where I transition the handle of the kettlebell from the very base of my palm into the crook of my fingers, skipping that callousy hand. So callousy pad of my hand, excuse me. And it's about right here in the video where that transition is finished. So now it's in the hook of my fingers, just the hook grip, right? So I'm not full death gripping the kettlebell. It's sort of much more mild hook grip, really great for developing grip and finger strength. And then, so you kind of see it there a little bit better, right? So you see how it's just kind of hanging in the hook of my fingers. I don't have a fully enclosed death grip around the kettlebell. The death grip is the death of your grip when it comes to the kettlebell snatch, because you'll not only really fatigue yourself that you won't be able to do the higher reps, but you'll just grind your skin to hamburger meat. All right, back there, boom, redirect, punch through at the top. Beautiful. Why don't I just let this play for a second so you guys can just kind of see the entire exercise in its full. I hope this is helpful. If this is helpful, please like, please subscribe, please share. All right, cameraman John grabs another angle here. I kind of disappear, and now I'm back. Very nice, very smooth. Okay, you'll notice the breathing. You can't hear it, but you can kind of see it with my obnoxious mouth movements. In, deep, sharp inhalation on the way down, out on the way up. We just went the biomechanical breathing match. Sharp breath through the nose to the belly on the way down. And then here I am laughing, having a nice time. We're all having fun. Down here, the Dragon Gym. And now I think we're going to bring Alyssa in to show you what not to do. Okay, so this is a good example, right? Perfect, right? That's perfectly bad. And that's why it's in black and white. We use like the icky, don't do this infomercial type of look. Watch what she's doing. She's not bending the elbow. She's not engaging the lat. She's casting the kettlebell out really far. And look it's a wild looking thing. It's so like I'm paused the video right here about halfway through her snatch, and she's not doing any of the redirective stuff that I've talked about. So it just looks like a pretty high one-arm swing. That's what we don't want. That's what we don't want, because now watch. Now it arcs above. Look at the top here. Notice how different this is from when I was doing the snatch. The kettlebell is completely over her hand on top, like pointing towards the ceiling when she's almost already at the top. What's going to happen here? What's going to happen is the kettlebell is going to come down hard on her forearm. And that's exactly what it does. So like you could tell, that does not feel comfortable for Alyssa. Thank you, Alyssa, for taking those bad reps for the team to show what not to do. Your hand, here's the key. Your hand has to get there before the kettlebell does. Okay. And the kettlebell needs to follow your hand. All right. So this is what not to do. Notice the wild arcing. Notice the kind of over gripping, and then you'll see, right, that how that big arc like wrenches her shoulder back. It kind of distorts her posture, and if it was really heavy, it'd probably throw her completely off of balance. So it's not only inefficient, but it poses mechanical issues as well. So this is the bad no. Don't do this type of snatch. This is missing the essential force redirection element. It's just really kind of a one-arm swing that's going out of control. That's what this is. This is not a kettlebell snatch. This is just a wild one-arm swing. And then, yeah, so that's pretty much it. That's good. I almost forgot that we had those naughty, don't do this examples. So check it out. So this video is more about dissecting the nuances that often get overlooked. I hope this has been helpful to you. But go watch this full video, because I give you 2 drills in this video to help transition and progress to the full kettlebell snatch. And those drills can be very helpful in learning these nuances, but you want to be aware of what you're learning and what you're practicing. So that's why I wanted to do this video, this podcast. And I'll link the original video in the show notes, but the title is How to Master the Hardstyle Kettlebell Snatch, 2 drills to get it right. It's on my YouTube channel. Many of you have probably already seen it. But give me your feedback. Please comment. Let me know if you found this helpful. Let me know if there's other exercises you would like me to break down in this manner. And yeah, I would love your feedback. Your likes, your shares, your subscribes are always very helpful. I super appreciate it. And hey, join us for the 7,000 rep snatch challenge. I'll put a link and the discount code in the comments if you want to join Strong On and take part in this awesome challenge with us. If you just did the 300 swings challenge, this is a great next step. And I invite you to join us for that. So thank you as always. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.